Many of you know that my dad recently died. I was blessed that I was able to be there with him in the end, and in doing so, I was able to share and listen to impactful stories about my father while being surrounded by my mom and my siblings and other family. These stories of who my dad was have enveloped me over the past few weeks, as you might imagine, and I can't seem to separate them from my daily thoughts and routines, because I believe this is what Jesus was trying to do with his disciples, which includes us. I have decided not to run from those stories, but instead to run with them. I've decided to share a bit of my father and how his story helped form me and my siblings into who we are today. I believe his story is woven within today's gospel reading from Mark as well. A story of caution when it comes to seeking honor and power, caution in wielding that power over others, but instead leaving us with an example of what it means to live within the honor and power of Jesus, and using it not to promote thyself, but to live each day the best we can as a servant for all. My dad grew up in the same Oklahoma town as I did, a town small enough that gaining power and wielding it could have come naturally. A town where one's faith and one's image could easily, if we let it, tie for first place in the what's most important contest. Faith and image. Dad was a captain and an attorney in the United States Army. In 1970, just months before I was born, Dad had to make a choice. He could be promoted to major and teach law at West Point, or he could return to his hometown of 6,000 people and be a small-town attorney. He chose to return home to his roots and raise his family. For my dad, to live in a community meant you were part of the community. There was no sitting on the sidelines. Everyone did their part. I think about this everyone doing their part bit each year as Thanksgiving approaches. In the fall, the local school held a canned food drive, which pitted every class, every school grade, against each other. I mean, there was only one school, right? We pitted us all against each other. Who could collect the most cans of food, and who would win those bragging rights? It was fun. And seeing all the cans that my class collected every year was very powerful. But that is not where the real power, the power of servanthood, was revealed. This revelation came the weekend before Thanksgiving. Dad would take us to the National Guard Armory, a large old rock building, and in it was a well-oiled machine, not a tank. It was a well-oiled machine, as one generation of servants shared what it meant to serve others with the generation to come. The first time I walked in, I was astounded by not only seeing the cans of food that my class had collected, but added to every other can that had been collected by the whole school. It was the most cans I had ever seen, and each year thereafter, probably because the pressure of wanting to win bragging rights, the mountain of cans grew bigger and bigger. The armory had been transformed into a maze of cans, bread, fresh fruits and veggies, pumpkins, and even wrapped Christmas presents. My job, along with so many others from the town, was to push a shopping cart through the maze, filling boxes with food and love, and then depositing the filled boxes in their proper numeric order at the end of the maze, and then to grab more boxes and start again. For hours, year after year, We as a community pushed carts and filled boxes. We were doing our part. Now on Saturday morning, Dad and I would get up early and go back to the armory to help carry those boxes to the cars of those who needed them. And as we left, we would load into our own car a few Thanksgiving boxes, including frozen turkeys. Those boxes were for the homebound in the community, for those who could not come and pick them up for themselves, and we would do home visits and carry them in and place them on their table. My dad was not only a small town attorney, he was also a city judge. Though I did on occasion sit in the back of his courtroom without ball cap on and without gum in my mouth. He would call people out for both of those things. I never had to stand before him when he was behind the bench. I just paid my traffic tickets and went on about my day. He would have probably doubled the fine if I had. For those of my friends that did stand before him, they always said the same thing. They would say, I don't particularly like the community service or the fine that he made me pay, but he was fair. His judgments were fair. Dad took this fairness with him when he left his law practice as a city judge and then became appointed as the special district judge and later was elected as associate district judge. His sense of truth, honor, and fairness, that it was this that led my dad to create from scratch and then preside over drug court in the county that he served. He was offering those who were suffering from an addiction a new path to healing and reconciliation instead of simply locking them up. It was not until my recent visit back home that I heard a new term and made a new connection. What I had all my life called a small town attorney, my mother called a people's attorney, and later a people's judge. James and John in today's gospel are proof about just how easily it is to get lost in the me and turn our backs on the we. These brothers had witnessed the transfiguration. They had witnessed Jesus standing in glory with Moses and the prophet Elijah. This image had to be so powerful that it actually kept them from listening to Jesus' teachings. So powerful, that image, that they weren't allowed to talk about when they went down the mountain. How it then became a blinder, I think, for them. This longing to be part of such honor and glory, it led them astray from the good news. So Jesus did what Jesus does, turning the world upside down, comparing what society believes to be the goal about honor and glory and what God's view really is on the subject. Jesus says, using the power of tyrants is not the way of love. For the disciples and for us to embrace the word greatness within God, we must be a servant and even a slave to all. I'm grateful for the new term that my dad was a people's attorney. It makes a lot of sense as I watched him over the years. And what it did when I heard that term, it turned for me what I really thought was a less than. He settled, he came back to small town, 6,000 people to practice law. It turned that into people's attorney, a term that then for me symbolizes greatness. Not something less than, but greatness. It helps me listen to the stories about Dad in a different light. A light and a life that put people first out of love. And as he would say, it was simply the right thing to do. Maybe we need a new term. Maybe we do. Maybe the term disciple is not enough. Maybe it's become stale, stagnant, or just rote. What if we began seeing ourselves not as a disciple, but as a people's disciple? A people's disciple. Maybe as a people's disciple, we won't end up making the same mistakes as James and John. Maybe being a people's disciple, we will be better servants to all.